How to go from small talk to deep conversation. I'm Chad, and let's get started. So through my work, I've gotten to facilitate thousands of conversations with hundreds of thousands of people about all sorts of topics. And in that work, I've learned a couple really key lessons that have helped me create more conversations that matter. And so in this video, I'm gonna unpack and start with sharing a story about Amanda, a student in a program that I was facilitating, training that I was facilitating at San Jose State University 2 days ago, actually. And I'm gonna share the relearning or aha that I had in relation to how do you take conversations from small talk, which very few people like, to real talk, to deeper conversation in a comfortable, natural way. And so in this video, I'm gonna share this main paradigm that I learned. But first, Amanda, so I'm facilitating this program, and Amanda unmuted, it was virtual, and Amanda unmuted and shared something about herself. And I realized she only spoke for about 5 seconds. But in that 5 seconds, I asked the rest of the group, I asked, Amanda, are you okay being put on the spot for a minute? And I asked the rest of the group, what did we just learn about Amanda? And even though she only spoke for 5 seconds, we were able to come up with more than 5 things that we learned about Amanda. And yet most people in that setting, the conversation would have just fell flat. And yet, in my mind, one of the most powerful tools to go from small talk to real talk or small talk to deeper conversation is to follow that curiosity, but in a very specific direction, which I'll explain in a moment. Because a big part of my job is inviting people to stretch outside of their comfort zone, I believe that every year I need to do at least one big thing that stretches me outside of my own comfort zone. And so last year, I was on a 10-day kayak camping retreat in the middle of the woods, no self-service, for over a week in total wilderness, paddling from site to site where we were camping. And there was a lot of alone time. There was a lot of time to think. And an aha showed up for me, which is this graph that we're gonna put up right here. So from a spectrum of small talk over here, over to real talk over here, you're watching this video because you wanna be on this side of the graph. Now, to add one dimension to this, I would say the most powerful tool to move from one place to the other is curiosity. And so if we draw another line coming down from a level of high curiosity to a level of low curiosity, the tool that I would love for you to employ is follow your vertical curiosity. And what I mean by that is go up with your curiosity as opposed to what most of us do is horizontal curiosity shopping. So we kind of like bounce from topic to topic to topic, as opposed to going really deep and intentional with one thought by listening very deeply and continuing to be curious about that element. Kind of circling down. That vertical curiosity is the easiest tool that you can just choose to do to go from small talk to real talk. Now, let me be really clear. For me, the definition as far as small talk has nothing to do with the topic of conversation. So typically when we think about small talk, we think about the weather or where you're from or what do you do. I would say that small talk has everything to do with the process and the way that you're having the conversation. Two meteorologists talking about the weather might not be small talk. It might be a really good conversation. And so we can't eliminate or judge whether a topic is worthy of being called deeper conversation just by the topic of conversation. And so the process really is following, that makes real conversation happen, is following your genuine curiosity vertically, not horizontally, and also listening. Curiosity and great questions are worthless without these two appendages on the side of our head that allow us to retain information, understand it, and potentially spit it back, because when we listen really well, we can get curious about many more things. And so in particular, going back to who we'll call Amanda from San Jose State University, the piece that she shared, I asked everybody to go grab an object that had some meaning to them. And she brought back this little tiny frame with a constellation in it. And she just shared, I'm not really into zodiac signs, but I'm a Cancer. And she said like maybe one other phrase, and that was it. There was no other context. And yet when I asked the group, what did you learn from Amanda? They were able to come up with 5 or more things, right? She's kind of into zodiac, but not really, but knows enough to be dangerous. She's a Cancer. She's comfortable enough to share in front of the group, right? So now we start to travel into things that she didn't say verbatim, but we're present in the actual group. And so there's some massive value in realizing that if you listen really intentionally, what you're curious about will change because what you hear will actually fundamentally be different. I've unpacked this in a couple other videos about how to start conversations with new people that you can check out right here. But one of by far my favorite features of conversation is this idea that dialogue is exponential. Conversation and connection is exponential. And here's exactly what I mean by that. So if I learn about this plant, right? If I learn that it used to grow in a greenhouse 15 minutes away, if that's all I learn about this plant, right? I can ask who works at that greenhouse, who started that greenhouse, what's the story behind it, what does the owner care about, right? We could go on for, this video could be unnecessarily long, coming up with questions about the story of just a plant. Human beings are way more complex. And so when somebody speaks for 10 seconds, almost certainly you can learn at least 3 things from them. And then if you ask a question about any of these 3 things, you'll learn 3 more things. And then you ask a question about any of those and you've got 3 more topics and 3 more. And so you can see how conversation is exponential. And yet typically, I think that this is really important because with people that we're close to in our personal lives, but also especially colleagues in our work lives, we follow like one curiosity path a little bit. We go horizontal curiosity. We kind of like learn all the facts about somebody right here, but we never get past like 5 layers deep of curiosity. And so you're watching this video because you want to go from small talk to deeper conversation. This is the way to do it. Break past that barrier, because usually we go about 3 layers deep in curiosity, and then we put somebody in a box and they stay in that box and our curiosity dies. And just before recording, actually, I was leading a workshop for Rutgers University, and somebody asked a question about when you work with colleagues for 10 plus years, you feel like you know everything about them, even though realistically you only know 2% of their world, and yet you put them in a box. If you work with somebody for 10 years, it was probably in the first year that they landed in the box. It was either like, he's the funny guy who's always a jokester, he's the curmudgeon who's always cranky and has nothing positive to say in a meeting, right? We put people in these boxes, and that limits puts a ceiling on our curiosity and prevents that vertical curiosity from piercing through. And I would say, to take a personal note from this, and Will, my co-founder and partner, really taught me this. When my curiosity is not present with Kate, my wife, our relationship is dead, right? When I am not curious about who Kate is, there is no progression. There's no relationship moving forward in that sense. The coolest part, though, is that curiosity is a choice. It's a choice, and it's also kind of like a muscle. The more you use it, the more easy it is to use. The more curious you are, the more easy it is to be curious. There's this like awesome cyclical effect. But you're watching this video to go from small talk to deeper conversation, and so really all you have to do is be curious 3 times today, and then 3 times tomorrow. And the more days you go on being curious, following that curiosity with questions, the deeper conversations you'll find yourself having. And if you're asking, rather than random curiosities from your brain, if you're asking about what somebody has just shared with you from what you've listened, the conversation will very quickly move from small talk to real talk. If you enjoyed this video, it turns out that my job is helping people create conversations that matter. Will and I wrote a book about it. It's called Ask Powerful Questions, Create Conversations That Matter. There's a link below with a free excerpt from it. And there's also this thing called Amazon, I've heard of it recently, that actually carries books, believe it or not. They sell them on the internet. It's amazing. Awesome hanging out in cyberspace with you. Have an awesome day.